This video is sponsored by Genesis. So this is the 2021 Genesis GV80, and I've had the chance to live with it, to drive it for the better part of 5 days. And we have a video that went up that talked about general thoughts about the car, an overview. But there were a lot of questions about specifics, about what this car is like to drive on a road over an extended period of time. So this is the definitive video answering all of your questions about the 2021 Genesis GV80. So the biggest one was essentially people wondering why they haven't seen another Genesis SUV before. So is this their first SUV? How does it compare to others in its class for the price? So for those of you that don't know, Genesis is the luxury arm of Hyundai, sort of their newer arm where they bring the premium from the brand out to the market. And they've had a few sedans already out, 3 actually to be exact. And then this is the first foray into SUVs with more to follow. And usually when it comes to cars or really anything, you sometimes don't want to pick up the first of it. You want to sit it out, wait it out, and sort of see what's going to happen. But I guess spoiler alert, not the case at all with the GV80. This does not feel like a freshman effort. This feels like a car that is in its 4th and 5th iteration. Things like door panels were perfectly aligned, the materials are premium. The sort of the flaws that sometimes you see in first-gen cars were not here at all. This is a company that was already very mature, and this is a car that if you're in the market for one of its size, you kind of owe it yourself to look at. And the big thing about it too is the price. You're looking at $49,000 starting. And that feature list at starting, you are getting a ton of stuff that for its competitors, like the BMW X5 for example, you have to tick option boxes to get to. And if we're comparing those two base to base, you're already getting a lot of value for a car without sacrificing anything in the premium category. All right, so what about acceleration? A dirty secret of car reviews is that oftentimes the people who are reviewing the cars don't have them for very long, usually a couple days. They gotta rush to get it out. We actually had the GV80 for the better part of a week, which was a good time to get to know it in all kinds of different scenarios. So first, and what impressed me the most, was the smoothness of the car. No car this big had any business feeling that smooth. That's not to say when you drop it into sport mode though, the performance kicks up a lot, and I was blown away by the handling. In a lot of sports cars, when you're driving them in sport mode as they're meant, you feel glued to the ground and stuck in your seat. And a lot of SUVs tend to feel a little floatier, bigger. They're bigger cars. They're not meant for those types of turns. The GV80, especially when in sport mode, really felt like that sports car type smooth. I will say though, and as great as the performance was and as quick as it felt to drive, you are gonna take a hit though on miles per gallon. This is a gas car after all, and our real world range on MPG when I was really driving it hard, around 15, when I started cruising on the freeway, went up to around 19. So your mileage and how it's gonna work for you is going to vary. So what's the tech like? How does it compare to others in the class? There's a lot of tech sort of inside some things that are really visible to you. So the first, you'll see that the car we have has upgraded seats. It's quilted leather, it's incredibly comfortable, but hidden in those seats is a massaging function, which was really nice to have. I've never driven a car that had massaging seats, so that was like a very welcome surprise to my back and butt. But little things like that to make the drive more comfortable. Bolsters that come out for your thighs were really nice, but that's more luxury tech. There is a cool bit of tech that I hadn't seen yet in cars. I know some of the other German manufacturers are doing something similar, but the gauge cluster in front of you has a 3D element to it. There are cameras that are sort of watching your eyes so it knows where you're looking, and it gives the digital gauges depth, which is a weird thing to say, and I can't even show you, because obviously, coming through the camera to YouTube to you can't see it. But suffice to say that the gauges do look like they've got depth. They look like analog gauges, and I tried to cover the camera and see what it looked like, and you could see them change. It's not like the headache-inducing stereoscopic 3D that you get with the old Nintendo 3DS or other 3D smartphones. This is very subtle. You might not even notice it, but it is a nice refinement to have. And the other big tech area is that 14.5-inch screen, which is gigantic and it's oriented widescreen. Usually we see screens kind of turned the other way. So I like that it's touchscreen, first of all. It is kind of far away to reach, so you have analog controls to control it as well. You can kind of pick and choose how you want to do it. Oftentimes these sort of in-car screens are underpowered. This one felt very quick, and that was nice to have. When you're using the analog to sort of turn things, there's really a nice tactile feel to it. I do wish that it kind of came out from the car a little bit more so you could grab it and turn instead you have to kind of push your finger in and turn. But it does feel really nice and it does perform as you'd expect. There also are cameras everywhere along the car, as kind of you'd expect from a car in this category and price. It does a really good job with the 360 view. You can't even see where the seams are stitched together. You also get a view where it kind of looks like you are outside looking at the car, where you can spin it around and sort of see what's around you. You get a picture of the car. Again, it's not a new technology, but a technology that's usually reserved for cars that are much more expensive. So it's nice to see that tech make its way here as well. Other kind of cool bits of technology, the back hatch, if you want it to, will open up when you stand behind the car. And so if you don't have to have your groceries out, you don't have to sort of wiggle your leg underneath anything. It'll just know that you're there and open up. And if you don't like it, you can turn that feature off. But there's a lot of really cool tech inside of this car. And the tech that this car has are things that we've seen generally from electric cars that are now making their way to gas cars. And as people decide which type of engine or motor they want in their cars, it's nice to see they don't have to sacrifice technology when they make that propulsion choice. How does the infotainment system inside compare to other car manufacturers who rely on larger displays? So for the record, I am pro the biggest displays possible inside of cars. I think they add a ton of value. You can do a lot more with the systems. And unfortunately, you're not really seeing that many car manufacturers put in really big screens yet. There's a move to it, but it hasn't sort of gotten its way down to every car. So I talked a little bit about the 14.5-inch screen. I really like the widescreen layout, where you can have multiple bits of information. My favorite use case, though, was when I had CarPlay up and I could still have a map on the side next to the CarPlay interface. That was nice. That's a benefit of that widescreen functionality. It's adding a lot of things here. You can have ambient noise that's sort of pumped in that sounds like nature sounds if you want while you're driving. You're sort of treating the car less as a mode of transportation, more as kind of like a luxury suite. And all that stuff is enabled from that screen. It was a little bit far to reach, but I liked that I had the choice on how I could interact with it. I think it boils down to this looks like the interior of a car you'd expect to be on the road in 2021, not a car whose tech looks like it peaked in like the early 2010s. That's the Genesis GV80, and Genesis has a lot riding, I guess metaphorically and literally, on this car being a success. So if you're checking out the car and you're thinking, that looks awesome, but I wish I could bring more people, there is a third row variant available as well that keeps the same size of the car. And this is a car that if you're in the market for one of its size and you want the luxury features, but you also want a good value for your dollar, kind of think you owe it yourself to at least test drive the GV80.